In the ancient world, when thunder split the sky and lightning tore through the clouds, humanity did not merely witness a natural phenomenon. They felt the presence of Zeus. From the heights of Mount Olympus, he ruled with a thunderbolt in his hand and the fate of gods and mortals beneath his gaze. To many, Zeus was the ultimate guardian of order, the divine force that restrained chaos and upheld justice in a fragile universe. To others, he was a looming shadow, a reminder that power, when absolute, demands obedience through fear. Zeus stands at the heart of a profound paradox. He is invoked as the protector of oaths, the enforcer of cosmic law, and the guarantor of balance between heaven and earth. Yet the same God who blesses harvests and punishes betrayal also destroys cities, condemns dissenters, and silences those who dare to challenge his authority. His justice arrives not with mercy, but with thunder. His verdicts are final, unquestionable, and often terrifying. This dual nature raises an unsettling question that echoes beyond mythology. Is Zeus truly the embodiment of divine justice? Or is justice merely the language he uses to legitimize fear? In the crack of lightning and the roar of thunder, we are forced to confront a timeless dilemma. When power defines justice, does justice still serve truth, or does it become the mask of terror itself? Part 1. Zeus, the architect of order and law. Zeus emerges in Greek mythology not merely as a ruler by inheritance, but as a conqueror who reshaped the very structure of the cosmos. Before his reign, the universe was governed by primordial forces and titans whose power was immense yet uncontrolled. Chaos was not simply a concept, but a living condition of existence. Zeus's rise to power, marked by the cataclysmic titanomachy, represents more than a change of leadership. It symbolizes the transition from raw, instinctual dominance to an organized system of authority, law, and hierarchy. The war against the Titans was, in essence, the first cosmic revolution. Zeus, with strategic intelligence rather than brute strength alone, united the Olympian gods, liberated the Cyclopes and Cinemanes, and forged alliances that transformed rebellion into a new order. The thunderbolt, gifted by the Cyclopes, was not just a weapon. It became the emblem of lawful power, a visual manifestation of authority sanctioned by the universe itself. Through victory, Zeus claimed the right to rule, but more importantly, he claimed the responsibility to maintain balance. Once enthroned on Mount Olympus, Zeus divided the cosmos with his brothers, Poseidon and Hades. This division was a foundational act of governance. The sky, the sea, and the underworld were no longer contested realms but clearly defined domains. Such an act mirrors the earliest human attempts at codifying territory, sovereignty, and jurisdiction. Zeus's authority over the sky positioned him above all realms, making him the ultimate arbiter when disputes arose. Order, under Zeus, was spatial as well as moral. Central to Zeus's identity as the architect of law is his role as the guardian of oaths. In ancient Greek society, an oath was sacred, binding not only socially but cosmically. To swear falsely was to disrupt the balance between mortals, gods, and fate. Zeus Horkios, the Zeus of oaths, punished perjury with relentless severity. This aspect of Zeus reveals a vision of justice rooted in accountability. Words carried weight, promises shaped reality, and law was inseparable from truth. In this sense, Zeus functioned as the divine embodiment of contract and trust, principles without which no civilization could endure. Zeus was also revered as the protector of Xenia, the sacred law of hospitality. Under this code, strangers were to be treated with respect, as any guest could be a god in disguise. By enforcing Xenia, Zeus extended law beyond borders, families, and city-states. He established a universal moral principle, that dignity and protection applied even to the unknown and the vulnerable. Violations of this law were met with harsh punishment, reinforcing the idea that justice was not selective but universal. In myth, Zeus often intervenes to restore balance when mortals overstep their bounds. Kings who rule tyrannically, heroes who defy cosmic limits, and cities consumed by hubris frequently encounter Zeus's judgment. These acts are not portrayed as arbitrary cruelty, but as corrective measures. The Greek worldview feared excess above all else, and Zeus stood as the cosmic regulator, ensuring that ambition did not dissolve into chaos. Justice, in this framework, was not about equality, but about proportion. A lesser-known, partly fictionalized tradition speaks of Zeus consulting the Moirai, the fates, before delivering certain judgments. Though Zeus was powerful, fate represented an older, deeper law embedded in the fabric of existence. By acknowledging fate, Zeus's justice appears restrained by a higher order. This suggests that his authority, while supreme, was not entirely self-created. Law preceded him, and his role was to enforce rather than invent it. Such a portrayal elevates Zeus from a mere despot to a custodian of cosmic necessity. Zeus's legal authority also extended to the divine realm. Conflicts among gods were settled under his watch, and even powerful deities like Hera, Apollo, or Athena were subject to his decrees. Olympus functioned as a celestial court, with Zeus as its chief judge. His rulings maintained unity among gods whose rivalries could easily fracture the universe. In this sense, Zeus embodies the principle that law must apply even to those in power, a notion both idealized and deeply human. Rain, thunder, and lightning were not random natural events in the ancient imagination. They were expressions of Zeus's governance. Rain symbolized blessing and sustenance, thunder a warning, and lightning punishment. Through weather, Zeus communicated law to mortals in a language they could not ignore. This divine surveillance reinforced moral behavior not through constant violence, but through the omnipresent possibility of judgment. Law was everywhere, even the sky. However, Zeus's justice was not compassionate in the modern sense. Mercy rarely appears in his judgments. Law under Zeus was rigid, impersonal, and often devastating. Cities destroyed by storms, bloodlines cursed for generations, and individuals punished eternally reflected justice that prioritized order over suffering. From an ancient perspective, this was not cruelty but necessity. Stability demanded sacrifice, and the universe could not bend to individual pain. In expanding myths, some storytellers imagine Zeus maintaining a celestial ledger, recording the deeds of gods and mortals alike. While symbolic, this idea reinforces the belief that justice was systematic, not impulsive. Every action contributed to the balance or imbalance of the world. Zeus, as keeper of this balance, acted less as an emotional ruler and more as a mechanism of cosmic law. Ultimately, Zeus, as the architect of order, represents humanity's earliest attempt to conceptualize justice on a universal scale. He is the answer to chaos, the force that transforms violence into structure and instinct into rule. Yet embedded within this vision is a warning. Order enforced without compassion becomes inflexible, and law without mercy becomes indistinguishable from fate itself. Zeus's justice stabilizes the cosmos, but it does so with an iron certainty that leaves no room for appeal. In this light, Zeus is not simply a god of thunder, but the personification of law as power. He teaches that justice can build civilizations, define morality, and preserve balance. At the same time, he reminds us that when justice is absolute, it becomes terrifying. Zeus stands as both the foundation of order and the silent question haunting all systems of law. How much power can justice hold before it ceases to be just? Part 2. Zeus, the tyrant enthroned by fear. If Zeus is praised as the architect of order, he is equally remembered as a ruler whose authority was sustained not by love, but by fear. Beneath the grandeur of Olympus and the rhetoric of divine justice lies a darker portrait. Zeus as a tyrant whose power demanded submission, whose law tolerated no defiance, and whose thunderbolts served as both judgment and warning. In this interpretation, fear is not a side effect of his rule. It is the foundation upon which it stands. Unlike benevolent deities who inspire devotion through compassion, Zeus commands reverence through intimidation. His presence is announced by storms, his will enforced by lightning, and his anger immortalized in catastrophe. Mortals do not merely obey Zeus, they tremble before him. The sky itself becomes a weapon, transforming nature into an extension of authoritarian control. Fear, in this sense, is institutionalized, woven into the very fabric of the world. One of the most revealing aspects of Zeus's tyranny is his intolerance toward challenge. The myth of Prometheus stands as the clearest indictment. Prometheus, a titan who sided with Zeus during the Titanomachy, commits an unforgivable act. He gives fire, knowledge, and hope to humanity. His crime is not violence or betrayal, but empowerment. Zeus's response is merciless. Prometheus is chained to a mountain, condemned to eternal torment as an eagle devours his liver day after day. This punishment is not corrective, it is exemplary. It sends a message to gods and mortals alike. Progress without permission is rebellion, and rebellion will be crushed. Fear, under Zeus, functions as deterrence. Punishments are excessive by design, meant to echo through generations. Entire bloodlines suffer for the crimes of individuals. Cities are destroyed not only for wrongdoing, but for arrogance, for daring to believe they could rival divine authority. Hubris, the greatest sin in Greek thought, is less about moral failure than about political insubordination. To challenge Zeus is to threaten the hierarchy, and hierarchy must be preserved at all costs. Even among the gods, Zeus rules through coercion. Hera, his queen, is bound by marriage yet repeatedly humiliated. When she conspires against him, Zeus does not reason with her. He suspends her from the heavens with anvils tied to her feet. Apollo and Poseidon, after rebelling, are stripped of their status and forced into servitude among mortals. These episodes reveal Olympus not as a harmonious council, but as a court ruled by fear of reprisal. Zeus's authority is absolute, and dissent is met with degradation. In some lesser-known and partially fictionalized traditions, it is said that Zeus feared one thing above all else, the prophecy of his own overthrow. Like his father Cronus, Zeus is haunted by the knowledge that power invites replacement. This fear shapes his rule. He crushes threats before they mature, neutralizes potential rivals, and asserts dominance relentlessly. Tyranny, in this light, is not cruelty for pleasure, but cruelty born of paranoia. Zeus does not trust the future. Therefore, he controls the present with an iron grip. The use of fear extends beyond punishment into surveillance. Zeus sees everything. His gaze pierces clouds, walls, and hearts. Mortals believe their actions are always observed, their intentions always judged. This omnipresence eliminates the possibility of private rebellion. Fear becomes internalized. People police themselves, not because they believe in justice, but because they dread consequences. Zeus does not need to strike constantly. The threat of lightning is enough. One striking contradiction is that Zeus often violates the very laws he enforces. As guardian of oaths and protector of hospitality, he demands moral discipline from others. Yet his own conduct is riddled with transgressions. His countless affairs, deceptions, and abuses of power expose a double standard. Law applies downward, not upward. Tyranny is defined not merely by harsh rule, but by exemption from the rules imposed on others. Zeus embodies this imbalance perfectly. Fear is also aestheticized in Zeus's image. Ancient hymns describe him as awe-inspiring, terrible in majesty, beautiful yet terrifying. This duality transforms fear into reverence. Worshippers are taught not to question whether Zeus is just, but to accept that his will defines justice. In this framework, morality is replaced by obedience. What is right is what Zeus permits. What is wrong is what he punishes. Fear becomes moral authority. In expanded mythic narratives, some poets imagined a hidden chamber beneath Zeus's throne, filled with shattered thunderbolts, each representing a civilization erased, a hero silenced, a rebellion extinguished. Whether literal or symbolic, the image reinforces the idea that Zeus's reign is built upon the ruins of resistance. Peace exists, but it is the peace of domination, not harmony. Yet tyranny sustained by fear carries an inherent weakness. It creates silence, not loyalty. The gods obey Zeus, but they do not trust him. Mortals worship him, but rarely love him. Fear prevents chaos, but it also prevents genuine unity. This tension simmers beneath Olympus, threatening to erupt should Zeus ever show weakness. His authority, though immense, is fragile, dependent on the continuous projection of power. A fictional fragment speaks of a night without thunder, when Zeus hesitates before striking a city guilty of defiance. In that moment of restraint, the sky remains silent, and whispers spread among gods and mortals alike. If Zeus can hesitate, can he be resisted? The myth suggests a terrifying truth for tyrants. Fear must be constantly renewed, or it fades. Zeus as a tyrant does not negate his role as a lawgiver. It complicates it. His justice is real, but it is enforced through terror rather than consent. Order is maintained, but at the cost of freedom, compassion, and trust. This version of Zeus reflects a harsh political reality familiar throughout human history. Stability achieved through fear is effective, but morally compromised. Ultimately, Zeus's reign forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. If fear keeps the world from collapsing into chaos, is tyranny justified? Zeus offers no easy answer. He stands as a warning carved into myth that power, when unchecked, will always cloak itself in the language of justice, and that fear, once enthroned, rarely relinquishes the crown. In Zeus, tyranny is not an aberration. It is a method of governance. His thunderbolts are not merely weapons, but symbols of a system where obedience is survival and dissent is annihilation. He is worshipped not because he is kind, but because he is unstoppable. And in that terrifying certainty lies the darkest truth of his divinity. Zeus does not need to be loved to rule the world. He only needs to be feared. Part 3. The fragile line between justice and fear. Between the image of Zeus as the supreme lawgiver and the vision of Zeus as a merciless tyrant lies a narrow, unstable boundary where justice and fear become almost indistinguishable. It is within this space that Zeus's true complexity emerges. He is neither purely the guardian of moral order nor solely the embodiment of terror. Instead, he exists as a paradox, a figure whose authority depends on balancing righteousness with intimidation, stability with violence, legitimacy with domination. This fragile line defines not only Zeus's reign, but the very nature of power itself. Justice, in its ideal form, is meant to restrain fear. It promises predictability, fairness, and protection against chaos. Fear, by contrast, thrives on uncertainty and submission. Yet in Zeus's rule, these two forces are intertwined so tightly that separating them becomes nearly impossible. His laws are clear, but their enforcement is terrifying. His punishments are justified as necessary, yet their scale often exceeds moral proportion. What begins as justice gradually transforms into something harsher, an order maintained not by trust, but by dread. The Greeks understood that absolute power cannot exist without fear. Zeus, as the supreme authority, embodies this truth. He is omnipresent in myth, watching from the sky, listening to prayers, observing transgressions. This constant surveillance creates a psychological reality in which mortals internalize fear as morality. People behave not because they believe an action is right, but because they fear divine retribution. Over time, fear replaces conscience. Justice becomes external rather than internal, enforced from above rather than chosen from within. This transformation reveals a crucial tension. When justice relies on fear to function, it risks losing its moral legitimacy. Zeus punishes oath breakers, violators of hospitality, and perpetrators of hubris, but his responses often blur the line between correction and annihilation. Entire cities are destroyed for the arrogance of their leaders. Innocents suffer alongside the guilty. Generations are cursed for a single act of defiance. In such cases, justice no longer appears as balance, but as excess. Fear expands beyond its role as deterrence and becomes collective trauma. Yet Zeus cannot abandon fear without undermining his authority. His rule depends on the perception of invincibility. If the gods or mortals believe Zeus can be challenged without consequence, the cosmic order begins to fracture. This creates a tragic cycle. To preserve justice, Zeus must appear terrifying. To remain terrifying, he must inflict punishment. Each act of punishment strengthens fear, and each increase in fear distances justice from compassion. The system sustains itself, but at the cost of humanity. One of the most telling contradictions is Zeus's relationship with mercy. Mercy requires vulnerability, the willingness to soften judgment in recognition of suffering. Zeus rarely displays such weakness. When he does, it is often concealed, indirect, or constrained by fate. This absence of mercy reveals a deeper truth. Mercy threatens authority. A merciful Zeus would invite negotiation, resistance, and moral debate. A feared Zeus silences all questions. In choosing fear over mercy, Zeus ensures obedience, but forfeits moral intimacy with those he rules. Some expanded and fictionalized myths describe Zeus standing alone on Olympus after judgment has been passed, listening to the echoes of thunder fade into silence. In these moments, he is said to feel the weight of his own decisions, not as guilt, but as inevitability. Zeus understands that the world he governs cannot survive without order, and that order cannot survive without force. Justice, for him, is not an ethical ideal, but a functional necessity. Fear is simply the price of stability. This realization places Zeus closer to a tragic figure than a villain. He is trapped by the very system he enforces. If he rules gently, chaos returns. If he rules harshly, he becomes monstrous. There is no middle path, only a constant adjustment along the fragile line between justice and fear. Each decision risks tipping the balance. Each thunderbolt reinforces order while eroding moral trust. The gods themselves sense this instability. They obey Zeus, but they also watch him. Alliances form quietly. Resentments linger beneath obedience. Olympus remains intact, not because it is harmonious, but because fear suppresses conflict. Justice, once a unifying principle, becomes a mask that conceals tension rather than resolving it. The divine hierarchy survives, but it is brittle, dependent on Zeus's uninterrupted dominance. For mortals, the consequences are even more profound. Zeus represents the ultimate authority, shaping how humans understand law, punishment, and power. Kings model themselves after him. Laws reflect his rigidity. Violence is justified as necessity. In this way, Zeus's fragile balance influences not only myth, but civilization itself. When rulers claim that fear is required for order, they echo Zeus's logic. When justice becomes indistinguishable from punishment, his shadow looms large. A fictional prophecy speaks of a time when Zeus's thunder will no longer inspire fear, only noise. In that future, justice will either collapse or be reborn without terror. Whether this prophecy signifies hope or disaster remains unclear. What is clear is that fear is an unstable foundation. It preserves order temporarily, but corrodes loyalty and meaning over time. Justice built on fear may endure, but it cannot evolve. Ultimately, Zeus's greatest legacy is not his thunderbolt, but the question he forces us to confront. Can justice exist without fear? Or is fear an inevitable companion of power? Zeus offers no resolution, only tension. He stands forever on that fragile line, a god whose justice terrifies and whose fear stabilizes. In this unresolved balance lies the enduring power of Zeus as a symbol. He is not merely a figure of myth, but a reflection of humanity's deepest anxieties about authority. Every society that seeks order must decide how much fear it is willing to tolerate in the name of justice. Zeus reminds us that once fear becomes indistinguishable from law, justice risks losing its soul. Thus, the thin boundary between justice and fear is not only Zeus's dilemma, it is ours. And like Zeus, we remain suspended above the world, thunder in hand, uncertain whether we are protecting order or merely ruling through terror. Conclusion. Zeus endures as one of the most powerful and unsettling symbols in all of mythology precisely because he cannot be reduced to a single truth. He is both the embodiment of justice and the incarnation of fear, and these two identities are inseparable. His reign teaches that justice without power is fragile, easily shattered by chaos, while power without restraint inevitably descends into tyranny. Zeus occupies the uneasy space where these forces collide, reminding us that authority is never morally neutral. As the supreme ruler of Olympus, Zeus enforces order on a cosmic scale, preserving balance in a universe constantly threatened by excess and rebellion. Yet the methods through which he maintains this order expose a darker reality. Justice enforced through terror demands obedience, not understanding. His thunderbolts do not persuade, they silence. They create stability, but at the cost of trust, compassion, and moral clarity. In Zeus's world, peace is real, but it is a peace born of submission. This duality is what makes Zeus timeless. He is not merely a god of ancient myth, but a mirror reflecting humanity's enduring struggle with power. Every system of authority faces the same dilemma Zeus embodies: how to protect order without becoming oppressive, how to punish wrongdoing without ruling through fear. Zeus offers no comforting resolution. Instead, he stands as a warning carved into legend, a reminder that when justice and fear share the same throne, the line between protector and tyrant becomes dangerously thin. In the end, Zeus is neither wholly righteous nor purely monstrous. He is the shadow cast by absolute power itself. And in that shadow, we are forced to ask not only who Zeus truly is, but what kind of justice we are willing to accept. Thunder tears across the sky of Olympus, and in its blinding light stands Zeus, ruler of the gods, master of lightning, an eternal symbol of divine justice. To mortals, he is remembered as the great hero who shattered the tyranny of the Titans and brought order to a broken cosmos. His name is spoken with awe, his image carved into stone, his victories sung in the voices of poets. But history, especially the kind written by the victorious, has a dangerous habit of hiding its darkest truths. What if Zeus was not only a liberator, but also a conqueror? Before Olympus rose, the universe was ruled by Cronus and the Titans, brutal, paranoid, and cruel. They devoured their own children, enslaved the forces of nature, and ruled through fear. When Zeus rebelled, it was seen as an act of cosmic salvation. The chains were broken. The Titans were defeated. A new age was born. Yet behind every revolution lies a question that no legend dares to ask. What was the real price of that victory? Zeus did not take power through negotiation or justice. He took it through war, thunder, and annihilation. The Titans were not judged, they were erased. Their voices were buried beneath Tartarus, and their story was silenced forever. And so, the only version of history that survived was Zeus's. As the skies cleared and Olympus shone in golden glory, no one dared to wonder whether the new king of the gods was truly different from the tyrant he overthrew, or merely a stronger version of the same darkness. Because when absolute power changes hands, the world may be saved, but the truth is often lost. Part 1. Zeus, the hero who overthrew the tyranny of the Titans. Before Zeus ever ruled the skies, Before Olympus glittered with marble and immortal fire, the universe was a place ruled not by justice, but by fear. The Titans were the first great gods, colossal beings born from Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the endless sky. Among them, Cronus rose to supreme power after overthrowing his own father in a brutal act of cosmic betrayal. He was not crowned by law, nor chosen by fate. He seized the throne with blood-soaked hands, slicing Uranus apart and casting his broken body into the abyss. From that moment on, the universe learned a terrible truth. Power belonged to whoever was willing to take it. Cronus ruled from a throne of terror. The stars moved at his command, the oceans trembled beneath his will, and even the other Titans feared his gaze. Yet despite his immense strength, Cronus was haunted by a prophecy, one whispered by Gaia herself. One of your children will destroy you, as you destroyed your father. Fear became his shadow, paranoia his closest companion. And so Cronus did the unthinkable. Each time his wife Rhea gave birth, he swallowed the newborn whole, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, locking them alive inside his endless stomach, entombed in darkness before they could ever see the world. To Cronus, it was not cruelty. It was survival. But fate does not bend forever. When Rhea became pregnant once more, something within her broke. The grief, the rage, the unbearable sorrow of losing yet another child hardened into rebellion. With Gaia's guidance, she hid the infant Zeus away on the island of Crete, while giving Cronus a stone wrapped in cloth to swallow in his place. Cronus, blind with fear and arrogance, devoured it without question. And so Zeus lived, hidden in a sacred cave, nursed by the divine goat Amalthea, guarded by warrior spirits who clashed their shields to hide his cries. Zeus grew not just in strength, but in awareness. He learned of his siblings imprisoned inside Cronus. He learned of the tyranny of the Titans. And slowly, within him, something far greater than lightning began to form. A purpose. When Zeus came of age, he did not rush into war. He was not yet powerful enough to challenge the Titans directly. Instead, he used cunning, disguise, patience. Disguised as a servant, Zeus infiltrated Cronus's court. There, he mixed a powerful potion into his father's drink, one that forced Cronus to vomit up what he had swallowed. One by one, Zeus's siblings were released, reborn into the light after years of imprisonment. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. Together, they stood before the Titan king, no longer helpless children, but gods ready to fight. The war that followed would shake the foundations of existence. The Titanomachy, the War of the Gods, lasted 10 years. 10 years of storms, earthquakes, and celestial bloodshed. Olympus burned. The oceans boiled. Mountains were torn from the earth and hurled like weapons. The Titans were ancient, vast, and brutal. But Zeus had something they did not. Allies. He descended into Tartarus and freed the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants imprisoned by the Titans. In gratitude, they forged for Zeus the greatest weapon ever known, the thunderbolt, a fragment of the raw power of creation itself, shaped into a weapon. To Poseidon, they gave the trident, ruler of the seas. To Hades, the helm of darkness, which rendered him invisible. For the first time, the Titans faced something truly terrifying. A united front. Zeus led the charge, hurling lightning across the battlefield. Each bolt tore through Titan flesh, splitting mountains, igniting the sky. The very laws of nature bent beneath his power. But Zeus was not just a warrior. He was a symbol. To the enslaved forces of the universe, he was rebellion. To the oppressed, he was hope. To the Titans, he was judgment. One by one, the Titans fell. Cronus, at last, stood face to face with the sun he had tried to erase. Lightning clashed against ancient scythes, sky against time, future against past. And when Cronus finally collapsed, the age of Titans ended. The defeated were cast into Tartarus, sealed behind unbreakable gates, guarded by the monstrous Cenomanes. The old rulers of the cosmos were buried alive beneath the world they once controlled, and Zeus ascended the throne of the universe. To many, this was the dawn of justice. The chains had been broken. The devourer of children had fallen. The sky was free. Zeus was hailed as the savior of the gods. And for a time, he was. But even in this moment of triumph, a shadow lingered. Because Zeus had done what all rulers before him had done. He had taken power through war, and the thunder that crowned him king was forged in blood. Part 2. Zeus, the new tyrant behind the throne of thunder. When the Titans fell and Tartarus sealed shut, the universe exhaled for the first time in an age. Mountains stopped burning. The oceans calmed. The sky cleared. To the gods of Olympus and the fragile world of mortals below, it appeared that justice had finally won. Zeus stood at the peak of Mount Olympus, thunder resting in his hand like a divine scepter. He was young, radiant, victorious. Poets would one day sing of him as the great liberator, the savior of the cosmos, the king who ended tyranny. But power does not disappear when a tyrant falls. It merely changes hands. At first, Zeus ruled as he had promised. The heavens were ordered, the seas given to Poseidon, the underworld to Hades, the harvest to Demeter. Even Hera, though burdened by her future, was crowned queen of Olympus. The world was divided, balanced, structured. Yet beneath this apparent harmony, something darker was growing. Zeus had not only defeated the Titans, he had learned from them. The first sign was Tartarus. The Titans had not been tried. They had not been judged. They had not been forgiven. They had been erased, locked away forever in eternal torment, stripped of voice, history, and memory. Their side of the story would never be heard. To Zeus, this was justice. To the universe, it was silence. And silence is the first weapon of every tyrant. Soon after, the gods themselves began to feel the weight of Zeus's rule. He did not debate. He commanded. He did not seek consensus. He declared law. Anyone who questioned him was reminded, subtly or violently, of the thunderbolt that never left his hand. Even Poseidon, master of the seas, learned to lower his eyes in Zeus's presence. Even Hades, ruler of the dead, obeyed without argument. Because Zeus was not simply king. He was unstoppable. But Zeus's greatest fear was not rebellion from Olympus. It was prophecy. Like Cronus before him, Zeus was haunted by whispers of fate. Oracles spoke of a child who would one day overthrow him. The echoes of Gaia's ancient warnings still lingered in the bones of the world. And fear, once again, was born. So Zeus did what all terrified rulers do. He tried to control destiny. When Metis, the goddess of wisdom, became pregnant with Zeus's child, prophecy foretold that her son would surpass his father. Zeus did not hesitate. He swallowed her whole, not out of hunger, but out of terror. The universe shuddered. A god consuming a goddess. A king devouring the future. From inside Zeus's body, Metis lived on, and from her, Athena would one day be born, tearing her way out of Zeus's skull in a burst of divine agony. The parallels to Cronus were undeniable, and yet Zeus never saw it. Zeus also ruled mortals, not as a distant observer, but as a manipulator. He descended to earth in countless disguises: bulls, swans, storms, kings, and shadows. He seduced, deceived, and conquered human women, leaving behind children who would become heroes and tragedies. Every affair created chaos. Every divine romance ended in suffering. For the women, for their families, for the children caught between godhood and humanity. And when mortals suffered, Zeus rarely intervened. Because suffering was not his concern. Control was. Perhaps the clearest proof of Zeus's tyranny was Prometheus, the Titan who had sided with Zeus during the war, the Titan who had helped humanity, the Titan who stole fire, not for power, but for survival. Zeus could not tolerate disobedience. He chained Prometheus to a rock and condemned him to eternal torture. Every day, an eagle would devour his liver. Every night, it would grow back. Forever. All because Prometheus dared to give humans knowledge Zeus wanted to keep. This was not justice. This was fear wearing the mask of law. Slowly, the gods realized the truth. Zeus had not ended tyranny. He had perfected it. Unlike Cronus, who ruled openly through terror, Zeus ruled through divine authority. His cruelty was hidden behind the language of order. His violence was justified as necessity. His paranoia disguised as wisdom. Olympus became a golden cage. Beautiful, powerful, and inescapable. The thunder that once symbolized freedom had become the sound of obedience. And the god who once promised never to become like Cronus had become something far more dangerous. Because Zeus did not believe himself to be a tyrant. He believed himself to be right. Part 3. Zeus, God, monster, or something in between. By the time Olympus reached the height of its glory, the universe no longer remembered the sound of chains breaking. It remembered only thunder. Zeus sat upon a throne carved from cloud and starlight, crowned by lightning, feared by gods and mortals alike. To the world, he was the eternal king, the lawgiver, the skyfather, the guardian of cosmic order. Temples rose in his name. Sacrifices burned on 1,000 altars. His image was carved into mountains and coins and stories. And yet beneath this divine worship lay a deeper, darker truth. Zeus was no longer just a god. He was a system of fear, desire, punishment, and power, one that shaped every corner of existence. To ask whether Zeus was a god or a monster is to misunderstand him. He was something far more dangerous. He was both. The ancient myths often portray Zeus as the protector of justice, the one who punished oath-breakers, defended hospitality, and upheld cosmic law. But the same God who punished injustice also committed it. The same thunder that struck down criminals also silenced the innocent. And so the question arises, was Zeus truly defending order, or merely defending his throne? To answer this, we must look not at his enemies, but at those closest to him. Hera, queen of Olympus, is often remembered as jealous and cruel. But what is jealousy when it is born from endless betrayal? Zeus humiliated her again and again, flaunting his affairs, turning mortal women into divine tragedies. Yet Hera, bound by divine law and cosmic image, could not leave him. She ruled beside him, but never as his equal. This was Zeus's pattern. Everyone was granted power, but no one was allowed independence. Poseidon ruled the seas, but only so long as he bowed to Olympus. Hades ruled the underworld, but was exiled to the shadows. Athena, born of Zeus's mind, was wise, but never free. Even his children were weapons. Heroes like Heracles were not just champions, they were tools of Zeus's will, sent to reshape the world according to divine preference. And what of mortals? To humans, Zeus was a paradox. He was the god who protected guests, yet violated women in their own homes. He was the god of justice, yet ruled through favoritism. He was the sky father, yet never acted like a father. Entire cities were destroyed by Zeus's storms not for crimes, but for displeasing him. In the myth of Troy, Zeus watched as thousands died, not out of necessity, but because fate, a fate he had helped design, demanded it. The suffering of mortals was entertainment. The will of Zeus was law. But the most chilling truth of all was this. Zeus believed he was good. Unlike Cronus, who ruled through naked fear, Zeus ruled through moral certainty. He saw himself as the architect of balance, the guardian of cosmic stability. In his mind, every punishment was justified, every cruelty necessary. This is what made him terrifying. A tyrant who knows he is cruel can be challenged. A tyrant who believes he is righteous cannot. And yet, Zeus was not purely evil. He did prevent chaos. He did stop monsters. He did protect the fragile structure of the universe from collapsing into primal darkness. Without him, reality might have fallen back into the endless brutality of the Titans. Zeus was not wrong when he said the world needed order. He was wrong in believing that only he could provide it. In the deepest, most secret corners of Olympus, there are whispers, old prophecies, forgotten warnings, echoes of what Gaia once said. No king lasts forever, not even one made of thunder. Zeus himself knew this. That was why he feared his children. That was why he crushed rebellion. That was why he controlled fate. Because somewhere deep inside the god of the sky lived a terrified child. The same child who had hidden in a cave, waiting for Cronus to be defeated. The cycle had never ended. It had only changed its face. So what was Zeus? A god? Yes. A monster? Also yes. But more than anything, Zeus was a mirror. A reflection of power itself. How it begins with noble purpose, how it justifies cruelty, and how it ultimately devours those who wield it. He was the savior who became the storm, the liberator who became the law, the rebel who became the throne. And perhaps that is the most tragic truth of all. Zeus did not fail because he was evil. He failed because he was human, with the power of a god. Conclusion. Zeus stands at the center of myth not because he was the strongest, but because he was the one who survived long enough to define the story. He ended the age of the Titans and brought order to a shattered cosmos. Yet in doing so, he built a new world upon the same foundation of fear, force, and absolute power. To some, he will always be the hero who saved the universe from ancient darkness. To others, he is merely the darkness wearing a brighter crown. What makes Zeus unforgettable is not his lightning or his throne, but his contradiction. He was capable of justice, yet addicted to control. He defended order, yet constantly violated it when it suited his desires. He punished tyranny, yet never truly escaped becoming a tyrant himself. In Zeus, we see a truth that extends far beyond mythology. That power does not corrupt only the wicked. It transforms even those who begin with noble intentions. And so Zeus remains suspended between god and monster, neither fully one nor the other. His story is not simply about divine wars and thunderbolts, but about the fragile boundary between leadership and domination. In the end, Zeus did not prove that the cycle of tyranny could be broken. He proved how difficult it is to escape it, even for a god.